Mozart Square. He was born here in 1756. Mozart, of course, is considered one of the great composers of all time. He was considered a wonderful genius even in his very youngest years. At the age of 6, Mozart was being taken on tour throughout the Holy Roman Empire by his father Leopold, who had taught him to play the piano and to play the violin, amongst other instruments. By the age of 6, Mozart already was composing his own works. By 8, he'd composed his first concerto. He'd composed his first opera by the age of 12. So a child genius with a real novelty effect. He was being taken on tour all over the old empire, up to the eastern capitals, Krakow and Warsaw, across to Prague and Budapest, across to Paris, playing for the popes down in Rome, up to London, playing all of the great music halls as a young child. And then during his teenage years, he went into the entourage of the Prince Archbishop, so the ruler of Salzburg. He spent most of his teen years travelling with the Prince Archbishop before finally departing for Vienna. He'd had enough of Salzburg. He didn't really like Salzburg. He thought that the people were narrow-minded. He thought that Salzburg was just a provincial town, that there was nothing here for him. And he was attracted, of course, by the big commissions of Vienna. He went to Vienna searching for the big money, which in fact he found. A lot of people believe that Mozart died a poor man, which is probably right, but he did make a lot of money in his time. People did pay him a lot of money, gave him big commissions to compose works for them, but he liked the high life. He spent it as quickly as he got it. In fact, he spent it quicker than what he got it. He liked going out and drinking and womanizing and partying, and spent all of the enormous amounts of money that he made. As well as being a married man, he married at a young age, married his young bride Constance. They had 2 surviving children of the 6 that she'd given birth to. But Mozart, largely during his adult years, wasn't as popular as he was in his younger years. The novelty effect of the child genius wore off over the years, and he spent a lot of time through his 20s and early 30s complaining that he wasn't being paid as much as he should have been, although at the same time composing some of the most famous pieces of music that the world knows. He complained about having to carry out menial tasks, scrubbing out pot boilers and the likes, rather than being paid to complete these wonderful works that he was composing. And he only ever composed them once. He composed them in his head, he put them to paper once, never any drafts or copies were made. The first copy was the final. Perfect the first time around. Mozart died a young man in Vienna. He was only 35 years old. Died probably of kidney disease as a result of his chronic alcoholism. And it was only after his death that he really became Austria's favourite son. Now, if you ask anyone in Austria who the greatest composer of all time is, they'll tell you their own Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and it was here in Salzburg that he was born in 1956. So we'll be making our way past 1756. I'm sorry, 1756. Do you know what? Actually, saying that, I had someone say to me once, going into Vienna, they said to me, "I can't believe we're actually going to see Mozart at the concert." And they said, "I can't believe we're actually going to see Mozart." I said, "Well, we're not actually going to see him. He's been dead for 250 years. But yeah, excuse me, 1756, not 1956. So of course Mozart, first of all, although he didn't really put it on the map because he thought it was just a provincial little outpost, that there was nothing much here, that the people were terrible, that the coffee was terrible, and that Vienna was much nicer. But it is his birthplace. But what really put the town on the map was that music, or that film, The Sound of Music, by Rodgers and Hammerstein. They came out here and filmed it on location in and around Salzburg, and you'll recognise a lot of the places from the film. And of course the film is based on true events. These were real people, the Von Trapps. Captain Von Trapp, he was a a captain of the Imperial Navy of the First World War, because of course Austria doesn't have a coastline anymore, but during the First World War, the Empire most certainly had coastlines. Some of the Italian coasts belonged to the Empire, and in particular the entire Croatian Montenegrin coast. The Balkan states belonged to the Austro-Hungarian Empire under the Habsburgs. So Captain von Trapp was a captain of the First World War, and his family lived here in Salzburg. And Maria most certainly was a nun who came to look after the children, of which there were 9, and they most certainly did get married. But everything that you see in the film, which happens over what seems to be a matter of months, in fact happened over about 10 years here in Salzburg. They've been married for a long, long time before the Nazi occupation occurred. So, and just like they show in the Nazi occupation, they did escape from Austria. They fled across to Switzerland, and they fled, of course, ultimately to the United States, where they made a very successful career for themselves as the singing Von Trapp family, touring around the United States. So for those of you who are Sound of Music fans, they most certainly are, or were, a true family of the area, a real family of the area, and most of what you see in the film is somewhat based on reality. But it was the film that really put this town on the map, and you'll see and recognise areas from the film in the city. And for those of you going out to the Eagle's Nest, also Gabby will be pointing out places that I'm sure you'll be familiar with from the film. Now what we're going to do, ladies and gents, is make our way into as far as the coach can take us, and then we need to walk. We'll be walking through the Mirabell Gardens, first of all. So for those of you who are familiar with the film, as we walk through there, you'll see the statues. We'll walk through the gardens, and as we exit the gardens, the statues are the statues that the children jump out from behind us singing Do Re Mi. Do you know that scene? If you don't know that scene, then I know you'll all be rushing off to watch it after having been here. You'll certainly recognise it. And then we'll make our way across the Salzach River. And as we cross the Salzach River, you get the nicest view looking across towards the old town and up towards the fortress of Salzburg, the 13th century castle fortress, which overlooks the town from on top of the mountain and was the original residence of the Prince Archbishops of Salzburg. So we'll make our way into the old town. The old town is the old town from the 14th and 15th century. The new town, where we'll start from, is the town from the 17th, 18th century. So everything's relative. Of course, to us, the new town even is old. But compared to the new town, the old town is older. So we'll make our way across the river and into the narrow streets of the oldest part of town. We'll go up past, we'll stop briefly in front of Mozart's birth house for a photo opportunity there. And then we'll wind through some narrow little passages, and you'll see where this wonderful sausage market and fruit market is, where you'll be able to have a bite for lunch. And then we'll head into the Mozart Square, the Mozartplatz, which is where our meeting times will be later this afternoon. So remember the meeting times for this afternoon, ladies and gents. We're
in Salzburg. We're about to go into where Sound of Music is.
Cartier Gardens are gorgeous, aren't they?
Yeah.
A lot of work, but they look great.
This is where they filmed part of Sound of Music, where the kids jump out of the statue.